Hey VC, Jeff here. So yes, I wanted to show some recent pickups and just talk a little bit about this particular artist that I'm, starting to pick up more stuff by. So, actually, interesting conversation. I guess that most, I don't know, probably can't find many husbands or wives that relate to this, or couples that do. But went to the record store. My wife took me to the record store. I don't know, am I getting antsy? Can she tell? She's like, let's go. She had to go to a shopping store that's close by. It's one of the ones across town. I'm like, well, if you're going to go to that store, Trader Joe's, then take me to the record store. And she's like, well, I can go to the other store next to that and kill some time. So don't worry about, taking too long in there. I'm like, okay. I just feel like I'm rushed when you're sitting in the car. No, don't worry about it. So I went in and looked around. Now, when I go to this particular store, which, maybe once every other month or once a month or so, I go right. They have everything nice and organized. I go right for the heavy metal section. They have hair metal nation section. They have commercial metal. Then they have more of extreme metal. Then they have punk. So it's like progressively. They have a doom sludge section. So I go right for the I start at the end and go right for that. So I go through all of that. Then I go over and they have a section of newly received used stuff, which is just one little section, and then I go through the rock and hard rock and stuff like that. If I have time, I'll flip through all of that. I also, in this particular store, go back through the jazz section, and I'm always looking for Billy Cobham albums because I really enjoy his stuff, but don't ever find much of it on vinyl out there. So I go to the same thing. I go to the store and I do that, and I never find anything with Billy Cobham. But this particular weekend, so I go there and I find a record in the newly brought in, used stuff. And I'm like, well, I want to get that, but I just left it there. And then I went back and then I found they had like five or five Billy Cobham albums. They weren't in the absolute greatest condition. They rank them, and I try to stick with their rankings. Are very good. These were like good plus. And most of that was because of the cover. So I'm like, oh, cool, and they were albums that I don't already have on CD. They were mostly from the Fusion years. So, but then I'm like, all right, well, I'm not gonna. I just came out of the store. I saw my wife in the car. At that point, I looked out the window. She's out in the car. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna go out there. So I come out there. She's on her phone checking stuff, and she's like, why are you empty-handed? And I'm like, well, they had a couple things, but I'm not worried about it. Save the money, whatever. Now, see, the thing was, so 2 weeks ago, and I think I mentioned this in one of my previous videos, 2 weeks ago, my band got a bunch of last-minute gigs. So I had a gig on Saturday, I had a gig on Wednesday, and then I had another gig on Saturday. So we had 3 band gigs in a 7-8 day period. And all the money came in on the last one. We got paid for that. So that would have been last Saturday. Then on Wednesday of this past week, my pastor got a hold of me at church, and he's like, hey, you want to preach this Sunday? Now, he knows better. I take a couple weeks to prepare because I'm a part-time, preparer. But he said, look, I just went through and read through a message you gave 5 years ago at church. And he said, I think it'd be really good to give again at this time. So I thought, okay, well, I can just rehash that, and it won't take that long. He said, so do you want to do it on Sunday? And I'm like, okay. So now I have like 3 days to just kind of whip it into shape, maybe update it a little bit, read through it, change it up a little bit. So anyway, so then and then they pay me when I speak. So I had extra money there. Point being, in a 2 week period, I made a good chunk of extra money. So my wife knew that. She's like, go buy yourself some records. You've been working hard, making extra money on the side with these extra jobs. And she's like, get back in there and buy something. And I'm like, no, you better get back in there and buy something. So yeah, she told me to go back in and buy something. So I went ahead. I got the one album that was under the used. I won't show that because that's a whole different topic, but nothing major. And then I went over and grabbed a couple Billy Cobham. Now, the thing about this album, I thought, because I have a lot of his stuff digitally, and I have a lot of his stuff on CD, and I've looked at a lot of his stuff, but I'm like, I don't even know what this album is. I had never seen this album. I was just caught off guard, so I went ahead and bought it. Oh, I got to get that because that's just one I'm totally unaware of. It is a promotional copy. It might even be, yeah, it's a white label promo. It was in good condition. Again, it might have been ranked in good condition because you can see this guy. You can kind of tell this water damage. The inner sleeve has kind of been wet. The album itself is in good condition. The cover is just typically dinged for that time frame. So, and it was under $10. So I'm gonna grab that. And then another one which I have seen online, I've listened to, but didn't own, and I went ahead and grabbed this one I think is from 1979. I guess it's just called BC. Again, whoever had this looked like they got a little wet at the bottom. You see the bottom of that. Record itself is fine. This is a gold stamp promo. I don't think it's a white label promo. No. But again, I thought the records were in very good plus condition. The cover does look like, it's stuck to another album. I don't know. That could probably be peeled off without damaging underneath, but I probably won't give it. Because you can tell somebody peeled a little bit of it off right there, and it looks like it's coming off. I haven't tried. But this one was even cheaper because of that. So I'm definitely going to grab that. They had 2 or 3 others, and I probably should have grabbed them. But because I had bought that other album, I wanted that other album first, and that one was the most costly of them, I decided to just stick with these 2. Now, Billy Cobham started off in the 70s as a jazz fusion type stuff. And I showed a couple months ago where I picked up the Music on Vinyl reissue of his first album, Spectrum. Love this album. It's got all kinds of, guest musicians on here that are, just great stuff. And love this album. But when I discover, and the stuff that on those 2 albums it's sort of still in that fusion vein, and some of the digital stuff from the days like Shabazz and stuff, which they did have, and I should have bought it, but anyway, they had 2 or 3 that I didn't buy. Hopefully they'll be there next time I go. And they, so some of that stuff was fusiony. By the time I physically discovered him myself, was in the around 85, 84, 85. And I discovered these 2 albums. Now, by the time these 2 albums had come out, these are not what I would consider jazz fusion, but more of just a contemporary, more of a modern, I don't even want to say smooth jazz, but it's just a little less fusiony and a little more commercial. And these are my absolute 2 of my absolute favorite albums, and 2 that I'm highly looking for on vinyl in the wild. I don't want to just order them online. One day when I was on vacation, I believe I found this one, but I just passed it up. I don't know how much they were asking for it, but these are the 2 that are just, this is where I started. This is my love. These 2 albums, I just air drum and air guitar every note on these albums. And all the ones after that are the ones that I ended up, I have still on CD. I had a couple more in this time frame that over the years I had, sold off, and I'm not even exactly sure why. I think I'm looking to get a lot of these on vinyl, but and again, more of a contemporary, modern type jazz. The only ones I had on CD, I have the Spectrum, and then I've shown this is a import version of some songs from earlier. So that's my Billy Cobham collection, and my growing vinyl collection now has 3 albums. And if I can get back to that store at some point, I may grab some of the other ones. And I told the guy, he's like, so did you find what you want? And I'm like, yeah, I'm surprised. Every time I come in here, you all never have any Billy Cobham, and now you've got a bunch. He said, yeah, I think we got a guy's collection that came in, and he had a bunch of that. So that and Spyro are 2 of the ones that, Spyro has a lot of albums out, so I slowly pick up one here and there, trying to build that up. So anyway, just wanted to share that. It was great to find those, and I've listened to those 2 albums, and they are just phenomenal. There's a song or 2 that has vocals, which he does do occasionally. Not a huge fan usually of that type of smooth jazz, regular jazz, that has vocals. I really would like to enjoy the instrumentation, but it didn't sound out of place. There was only 1 or 2, and the rest of the songs were really good. Great stuff. I'm always on the lookout for more of his stuff, and was glad to find a little chunk of it there over the weekend. So thanks for watching. I will be back. Rock on, rock hard, or jazz fusion.